Welcome to today's deep dive. Imagine for a second discovering that there's this hidden courtroom inside your head.
Right, the literal internal courtroom.
Exactly. And it's keeping a permanent, completely unerasable ledger of your entire life. And in this courtroom, the act of, say, unearthing an ancestral tomb carries the exact same cosmic penalty as gossiping about your neighbor's private life.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is an extreme comparison.
It really is. Every minor annoyance, every massive crime, all of it weighed on the exact same uncompromising scale. So that is what we are digging into today. We're opening the doors to that internal courtroom to explore a really fascinating, highly systematic philosophical text.
Yeah, it's an almost cosmological text, really.
Right. It's by an author named Xu Feng, and it's titled Conscience, the Mark of the Deficiency of Conscience. And our mission today is to completely decode how this framework operates.
Because it is incredibly detailed.
Very detailed. We'll explore how the author defines conscience, unpack these striking mechanical explanations for human guilt, and examine a hyper-specific list of 38 offenses that basically signal a failing moral compass.
And, of course, the universe-altering stakes attached to all of this.
Exactly. Okay, let's unpack this, because this isn't just a generic discussion about being, a good person.
No, not at all. To navigate this framework, we really have to discard our conventional, everyday understanding of morality. Because usually we treat being a good person as this sort of negotiation.
Like a gray area?
Right, we allow for gray areas depending on the context.
Yeah.
But Xu Feng's text eliminates that subjective wiggle room entirely. I mean, it completely wipes it out.
It's totally rigid.
Yes, it attempts to map out the exact mechanics of human nature. It proposes that what we call conscience isn't some culturally acquired trait, but a biological, structural absolute.
Yeah, the author describes it as a natural attribute and explicitly compares it to a person's eyes, like you simply have them.
You're born with them.
Right. And the text emphasizes that this attribute operates completely independently of your social status or your bank account, gender, education. None of that matters.
It's universal.
Completely universal. It defines conscience as an invisible, self-disciplinary moral court, which is implanted in humans by what the text calls the greatest creator.
And I think we should probably contextualize that term really quickly.
Yeah, good idea.
Because within this specific philosophical framework, the greatest creator functions less like a localized religious deity and much more like a cosmic architect.
Oh, yeah, an architect.
Right, an originating force that designed this perfectly harmonized system. So this internal moral court is implanted to enable humans to congenitally distinguish right from wrong.
Meaning we inherently just know.
Exactly. It's meant to maintain harmony between man, nature, society, and this architect. That's a built-in regulatory mechanism.
But, and here's where I get a little tripped up, the text introduces a foundational concept about this mechanism that seems, honestly, totally paradoxical.
The nature of origin.
Yes. It states that our conscience is an extension of the nature of origin. But then it describes this origin nature as having no birth, no death, no perception, no thinking, and absolutely no physical senses at all.
It's the void.
Right, a literal void. But in the very next breath, the text claims that because of conscience, we suddenly experience birth, death, the distinction between filthy and clean, and our physical senses. So I need to push back on this sequence for a second.
Sure.
How does an invisible moral filter actually generate physical reality and human perception out of a void?
Well, I mean, it is a massive philosophical leap.
Oh.
But to bridge that gap, the text utilizes a very specific metaphor. It talks about water.
Water. Okay, how so?
So the elemental makeup of water, its core attribute, is identical everywhere on Earth, right? But when you introduce the variable of temperature, that exact same core attribute manifests in wildly different states.
Oh, like ice versus vapor.
Exactly. It
Yeah.
becomes solid ice, flowing liquid, or invisible gas.
Okay, so if I'm tracking this logic, the nature of origin acts like the blank underlying operating system of a computer. It's just base code. It doesn't feel or experience anything on its own.
Right, just formless potential.
And the conscience then acts as the virtual reality hardware you plug into that system. And because of that hardware, the formless code suddenly processes sight, sound, boundaries, and physical consequences.
That is a really excellent way to visualize it. Conscience is the temperature that solidifies our existence. It's the filter through which the infinite void becomes something we can touch, judge, and ultimately, live and die within.
Okay, that makes sense. But if we follow that logic, we run into an immediate real-world contradiction.
Which is?
Well, if human nature is originally the exact same, if we're all running on the same base code or made of the same water, why are people so drastically different?
All right.
Like, why do we see acts of profound altruism right alongside horrific violence if the core hardware is identical?
The text actually anticipates this discrepancy, and it shifts its metaphor to address it, asking you to picture humanity as a single massive tree.
A tree.
Yeah, and every single leaf on that tree shares the exact same fundamental biological nature. But depending on where a specific leaf is situated on the tree, it gets exposed to different elements.
So some leaves are just out in the open.
Right, and some become entirely coated in dirt and dust.
Got it. And the dirt in this framework represents the social environment, right?
Precisely.
It's the negative societal mechanisms, corrupting influences, just the bad inputs a person is subjected to over time.
Exactly, and because of that accumulated grime, those leaves are incapable of showing their true colors. They look dark or damaged. But leaves situated higher up, or ones that get a cleansing rain, they remain vibrant.
So the text is suggesting that a deficient conscience isn't some permanent evil mutation of the soul.
No, not at all. It's just a leaf heavily obscured by the grime of its environment.
I want to test that idea, though. Because if conscience is an inherent structural attribute, like a person's eyes, like we said earlier, how can external society alter its fundamental function?
What?
Doesn't that sort of contradict the premise of an unchangeable internal court?
I see what you mean. The author would likely argue that the dirt doesn't change the biological structure of the eye. Instead, it acts like a really dense cataract.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the eye still exists, right? But the lens through which it perceives reality is completely clouded. The internal court is still there, but the environmental dirt prevents the gavel from striking cleanly.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So if the dirt of society is what obscures our original nature, that forces us to look at how we actually measure that dirt internally. Like, how do we know when our own loaf is getting too dirty?
Right, because it's invisible.
Exactly. And the text doesn't just leave this to guesswork. It builds a mechanical system to measure it, which brings us to its fascinating definition of guilt. The author doesn't treat guilt as just some vague, uncomfortable emotion.
No, it is framed as a literal legal proceeding inside your head.
Or a mechanical failure. The exact phrasing in the text describes a guilty feeling as a shame complex resulting from failure in a suit of self-trial.
A suit of self-trial. That's such a heavy way to put it.
It is. Think about a recent scenario in your own life. Say you cut someone off in traffic, or, I don't know, you snapped at a coworker because you were stressed.
We've all been there.
Right. According to this framework, an actual trial begins in your mind. You become both the prosecutor and the defense attorney.
Defending your own bad behavior.
Exactly. You argue the case against yourself, maybe deploying excuses like, well, I was running late, or they were moving too slowly.
But when you ultimately lose that internal case, when the inherent nature of origin overrules your ego's flimsy defense, the resulting psychological friction from losing that trial is the emotion we identify as guilt.
And the text makes a really stark assertion here. Without this specific internal trial, a human being would be literally incapable of feeling guilty.
Which is terrifying.
Totally. Without that court functioning, the author warns that a person would just swell with selfish desire, act in a foolhardy manner, totally disregard justice, and basically stop at no evil.
They'd harm others without a second thought because the internal gavel just never falls.
Right.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, we really have to look at the macro implications of this mechanic. Because the text makes a radical sociological claim here.
Oh, this is my favorite part.
It argues that if this invisible moral court worked perfectly in every single human being, human society would require absolutely zero laws.
None. Zero constitutions, zero rules. It reframes our entire understanding of civilization.
Really does.
It suggests that our physical courtrooms, these massive legal encyclopedias, our judges, our police forces, they aren't triumphs of human organization. They are external prosthetics for a broken internal organ.
That's a great way to put it.
They're literally monuments to our collective failure.
Yes. The author explicitly states that society is forced to establish visible, physical courts strictly because the internal self-disciplinary court is deficient.
Oh.
We only built courthouses of stone and wood because the invisible courtroom in our life structure broke down. If the internal system functioned, external laws would be completely superfluous.
So if our external laws are just massive band-aids for a failing internal system, what specific actions actually trigger a conviction on the inside?
Right, what's on the ledger?
Because the author does not deal in generalities here. The text outlines a highly specific 38-point list of phenomena that serve as definitive proof of a deficient conscience. And the spectrum of offenses on this list is wild.
It covers everything, from global atrocities to hyper-specific interpersonal grievances, and it treats them all as critical data points.
Let's examine the extremes first. The list includes universally recognized heavy crimes. Item 6 calls out stealing, robbing, rape, extortion, corruption, and accepting bribes.
And then item 10 zeroes in on massive environmental crimes, specifically calling out those who pollute the earth, the air, the rivers, lakes, and seas.
Right. It also includes the random slaughter of animals and the destruction of forests. Massive harm to others and the planet are clear indicators of a severely clouded lens.
But then interspersed directly alongside those massive crimes are surprisingly mundane micro-offenses.
Exactly. And they carry the exact same weight in this internal courtroom. Like item 13 states, a deficient conscience is marked by causing damage to a developing embryo, destroying a bird's nest, destroying a beast's den, and unearthing other people's ancestral tombs.
Unearthing tombs. The specificity is deliberate, though. It forces the reader to look completely beyond societal legal codes.
Yeah, and then you have item 26, which condemns giving short measure and taking substandard products as fine products.
Basically shortchanging someone at a market.
Scamming a customer, yeah. Item 34 is simply exposing others' privacy, which is essentially just gossiping. And item 29 struck me as uniquely profound. It says, taking away other people's favorite objects. It doesn't say stealing their life savings. It specifies taking an object they favor or love.
What's fascinating here is that when you analyze the underlying worldview of this 38-point list, you realize the author is completely dismantling our traditional hierarchy of crime.
Totally dismantling it.
There's absolutely no distinction between a felony and a misdemeanor in this cosmology.
But why is that? I mean, in our physical courts, stealing a favored object results in a minor fine, while polluting a river results in federal prosecution. Why does this internal courtroom weigh them equally?
Because the text operates on a physics of absolute, uncompromising interconnectedness. Think of the universe as a vast, tightly woven spider web.
Okay, a spider web.
In our external legal systems, we judge a crime by the size of the hole it rips in the web. But in Zhu Feng's framework, the internal court judges the simple act of plucking a thread.
Wow. So scamming a customer with substandard products vibrates the exact same web as polluting a river.
Exactly. Insulting a teacher fractures the localized harmony just as much as destroying a beast's den. The scale of the action is entirely irrelevant to the internal court.
It's all about the intention.
The intention and the disruption of harmony. Whether you desecrate an ancestral tomb or casually expose a coworker's private secret, you are demonstrating that your internal connection to the nature of origin is broken. You're acting as an isolated ego rather than a connected part of the whole.
Which makes every daily interaction feel incredibly heavy. I mean, think about the last time you bought a coffee or chatted with a neighbor. Exposing someone's privacy or acting with subtle greed, they aren't just minor character flaws you can laugh off.
No, they're flashing warning lights.
Flashing warning lights that your fundamental human hardware is malfunctioning.
Which forces us to ask the ultimate question regarding this text. Why does tracking these 38 offenses actually matter?
Right. What's the consequence?
What is the actual consequence of ignoring these warning lights and letting your internal court fail its trials day after day?
Well, the text escalates the stakes to the highest imaginable level. The verdict of your internal court does not merely dictate your earthly happiness or your reputation. According to this framework, it dictates your ultimate cosmic destiny.
Destiny, yeah.
The author states that conscience is a touchstone to test the perfection of a soul.
It also uses the term watershed to test the fruits of a person's self-cultivation. And a watershed is essentially a geographical ridge. When rain falls on it, the water is forced to flow in one of two completely opposite divergent directions.
So there's no middle path.
None. The mechanics of the afterlife in the source material are highly structural. The text posits that the universe contains different layers of life spaces, and each space has a different structural requirement for entry.
Okay.
So your conscience acts as a predictive compass, or perhaps an acoustic frequency, dictating exactly where you fit.
And if your internal court functions perfectly, If your frequency is clear of dirt, the text states you will undoubtedly walk toward the heavenly kingdom. You naturally rise to a life space that matches your perfected structure.
But if your conscience is deficient, whether that's because you committed violent crimes, or simply because you habitually polluted your local environment, or bullied isolated individuals, or employed artful trickery in your business dealings, your trajectory shifts downward.
The text actually guarantees a descent into the lower orders of life,
Yeah.
specifically naming the animal layer or hell.
It's entirely binary. Like we said, there is no middle ground or purgatory mentioned. The watershed divides the flow strictly upward or downward based entirely on the accumulated verdicts of your internal court.
And yet, despite the heavy, unyielding nature of this cosmology, the text distills its entire philosophy down into a remarkably empowering final message for the listener.
It really does. It places the ultimate authority back into the hands of the individual.
Exactly. It takes these massive cosmic stakes and grounds them into an actionable daily mantra. The text concludes with this principle. Keep a good conscience and you will be infinitely blessed. Abandon the good conscience and you will be plagued with disasters.
It strips away the need for external priests or police or judges.
You are the architect of your own destiny. The way you rule on your own daily actions, whether you fight to keep your leaf clean or allow the dirt of your environment to encrust it, dictates your infinite future. Every single action, from how you dispose of trash to how you speak about your peers, is a data point in that invisible court.
It is a framework that demands absolute, unblinking accountability from the individual, constantly reminding us that our internal hardware is always recording.
So, to summarize our deep dive today, we've navigated a philosophical text that redefines conscience. It's not a fleeting, culturally conditioned feeling, but a rigid, invisible courtroom implanted within us to translate the infinite nature of origin into our physical reality.
We explore the mechanics of guilt as a lost internal lawsuit.
Right, and realize that our sprawling societal laws only exist to prop up our failing internal compasses. We mapped to 38 offenses that signal a broken connection, learning that gossiping vibrates the exact same cosmic web as environmental destruction.
And finally, we unpack the structural mechanics of destiny, where the clarity of your conscience acts as a frequency guiding you either toward a heavenly kingdom or the lower orders of life. It provides a profound lens through which to evaluate not just our actions, but our internal motivations.
Thank you for joining us on this exploration of the mind, the soul, and the uncompromising internal courtroom. We hope this deep dive into Su Feng's text provided you with some powerful insights and a completely new framework for analyzing your daily choices.
Exploring these rigid frameworks often reveals the hidden flexibility we take for granted in our own lives.
Before you go, we want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, building on the author's radical claim about society's laws. The text argues that if everyone's internal conscience worked perfectly, all external laws would vanish.
Completely disappear.
Imagine waking up tomorrow morning in a world where every single law, every binding contract, every police force, and every physical courthouse evaporated overnight, simply because humanity's internal courtroom suddenly functioned flawlessly.
What a thought.
What would that first day actually look like for you? And as you navigate your responsibilities this week, ask yourself, how much of your daily routine is currently guided by the fear of external consequences rather than the quiet, uncompromising gavel of your own internal court? Think about your own ledger. Until next time.